Welcome to the first video presentation by Team K, Sean, Kyle, Anthony, and Dina. We chose Project 4 in the entertainment and healthcare sectors. Briefly, some background. The main focus of the project is data collection from pediatric patients in a clinical study. The participants are chronic asthma sufferers, and the researchers have commissioned a multiplayer, competitive game in order to incentivize the participants to enter data on a daily basis. Bonus currency is earned for this daily entry. The multiplayer aspect is handled by way of level timing, or points, and leaderboards. The study has a fixed duration of 8 to 10 weeks, which did influence project design.
Asthma Blaster. It's going to be a tablet-based touchscreen game. And starting with our game flow, I'm going to show you the login screen, which will then bring the user to the home page. Now, very important in this game, we're going to have a bonus feature. They don't have to record their air quality and their spirometer results. But if they do not, they will not receive bonuses, which will then allow them to use on attributes as for the spaceship, as well as different unlockables for customization. Now, if they choose to do that, great. If they don't, they won't do too well with competing against other persons that are playing this game. Once they choose to select one of these combinations, this would be an example of what it would look like. They would select that button and then it would bring them back to the spaceship. Moving forward, once they select the blast off, it'll bring them to the galaxy map. The galaxy maps has different galaxies available for them to choose from, and once they choose to challenge that map, they'll be moved into the playfield, which then will allow them to be in either single player mode in a full screen or multiplayer, which would be down the middle vertically, and they'll be able to see the gameplay recorded from a different user, maybe one of the top scorers that they can try to compete against in that galaxy map. If they choose to pause, this is what this screen would look like. Play would bring them right back into the playfield. Once the game is over, they'll show their star results as far as 1, 2, or 3-star rating, so they know how they fared, as well as the top scores for that level. Now, moving into the actual click-through of the game, we'd have Asthma Blaster on the big top of the screen, and as well as a nice colorful logo. Now, this would be a password given by the clinical trials. It would be a one-time deal. So let's say tomorrow if they did this, it would just be the login button they'd have to click. No extra confusion. Moving in to the home page, you'd be able to see welcome back and then the avatar which they chose, as well as the time left for a bonus, because they can only get this bonus once a day. We're trying to make sure that the clinical trials has the user using this game every day to check the air and speedometer readings. So every 24 hours, and the more bonus points they have, the more points they can spend on customizing their ship as well as attributes. So checking on the air quality would be a one-click and collect all for the rooms, as well as the spirometer would be hooked up with a Wi-Fi direct or a Bluetooth to the tablet. Once they're done with that exercise, they'll be able to submit. Now, moving into the more exciting part with this spaceship, they get to choose between color 1, color 2, the model up here, the rockets down here, as well as the wings. An example of how the selection would be, for example, the avatar would look something like this. They select what they like, and it moves them back into the spaceship page. They can change the name of their ship and spend those points that are so important on their attributes as well. Once they're done, they get to blast off and choose the universe they wish to go against and challenge. Now, you see these flags here. These flags are for the different universes you're already at. You get to customize that flag and make it more unique of an experience for the user. Once they select that, it brings them into the play field. They can do single player mode, which would be the full screen, or multiplayer, which would be cut down the middle and would be a recording of another user, possibly one of the top scorers they want to go against. You see the score up here at the top keeping track. And we have our special button, which we're yet to decide upon as a group, possibly shooting lasers or rockets or a way of doubling or tripling coin selection as far as the currency. Also, we have yet to decide if it's going to be coins or stars. But either way, the controls will be right over here. And if the user chooses to pause, it's a simple pause, brings it back to the play. And once the user is complete with the game, this is going to pop right up. And it's going to give them a star between 1, 2, or 3. Top scores will be right here listed, telling them they did awesome, as well as the total currency that they received. Now, if they're curious to see how well they did, they can go back home, check how well they're doing, as well as if they want to go ahead and change their spaceship after the game, they can. But most importantly, they have to wait to play again tomorrow. So give them a sense to want to play over and over again, and that's really what this game is about. Getting these results every single day. That way it'll be fun for the user.
We
Thank
reached
you.
the end of our first iteration in time for this video. As closely as possible, we completed each step of UCD linearly. Most importantly, we learned not to iterate inside a step, although this was challenging in the beginning. It is important to get just enough detail as necessary to move on, as extra detail can make later steps more difficult than necessary. We already have some ideas for the next iteration, so to some degree we do see convergence on a final user interface design. Our focus during the first iteration was on higher level techniques. Most helpful were research, working in parallel, scenarios, personas, and prototypes. By the end of the first iteration, we feel much more comfortable executing the UCD process. As previously discussed, we did have some challenges early in limiting the amount of details specified for a given step. However, as a consequence, even though we've completed only one full iteration, we have enough content to quickly perform another iteration. Therefore, we are comfortable with our progress, even without knowing exactly where we wanted to be when starting the first iteration. Our main risk continues to be excess work or detail. This causes us to fall behind later because much of the extra work is abandoned as future steps change our assumptions of the project and requirements. With more experience, we now understand that a definite goal and detail cutoff should be determined when moving to a new step. Tight personal schedules and compressed class content pose a risk to meeting objectives. The risk was foreseen since all team members have experience in this program. We spend a portion of each discussion and meeting deciding deadlines and assigning tasks. When iteration 2 is complete, we hope to have finalized our assumptions and requirements, have a linked wireframe, and determine with near final accuracy the user interface consistency, i.e. screen-to-screen similarity and button placement. Some feedback was received from the class. Thank you for taking time to critique our design. To address several of the recommendations. On currency, we do have a standard currency which is earned primarily through data entry and also gained levels. It is used for cosmetic and statistical upgrades. Points are accumulated during levels, and these are used to determine leaderboard placement, which is the primary competitive aspect of the game. On combat. The suggestion to add a combat element is appreciated. Our group discussed this, and we have decided to include a detail in the next iteration. While it is not necessarily a user interface element, we do think it is important to the feel of the game and will include it explicitly. On hardware. The type of hardware was discussed when brainstorming assumptions and determining requirements. This was actually one of the overwork elements that hindered progress for a brief time during an early meeting. We decided that the actual methodology for data collection does not have to be detailed. We are implicitly adding modularity into the design that would presumably support various methods. In addition, interactive help will be included for each data entry required, regardless of the acquisition method. On cheating. We do not contemplate cheating for our user interface design, although this may come up again for UML. Thank you.